You've probably assumed that if you truly qualified for extra money from the government, somebody at some agency would have flagged your file and called you by now. Nobody is coming, nobody was ever assigned to. That's not bad luck. That's how the system was designed to run, and it's draining real money out of people exactly like you every single month. A year of nothing but bad financial news would make anyone want to tune out the moment they hear the word government. Fair enough. But these three things are different. Unlike most of what's been in the headlines, they actually have your name attached to them, whether you've noticed or not, and each one was written with someone in your exact circumstances in mind. Frankly, that should bother you a little because the honest reason you've never heard of them isn't that they skip over you. It's that making sure you found out was never anybody's assigned task. One can knock a real bill off your Social Security check every month. Another exists purely to keep your lights and your air conditioning running without the bill drowning you. And the third, which I'm holding back for later, works nothing like a discount. It functions as a completely separate monthly deposit, landing on top of whatever check you already receive. Nationally, something close to half of everyone who qualifies for programs like these walks away claiming none of them. Half. Sit with that number for a moment before deciding this isn't for you. I'll walk through all three in plain English, skip the legal jargon, and pause once along the way to flag the kind of person who preys on exactly this sort of money. Here's the part that should genuinely irritate you. These programs only pay out to people who apply. Nobody's job description includes tracking you down to say you qualify. That role has never existed in any government office anywhere. And the people who need this most, folks stretching a fixed income to the last dollar, are exactly the ones with the least free time to go hunting through some government website for a form whose name they'd never guess. My name is Walter. I'm a state bar licensed estate attorney, and I've sat across the table from families for more than 15 years, going through the fine print behind programs like these. I'm not selling you anything today. You won't find a guide or a paid offer waiting at the end of this either, and it doesn't change my day one bit whether you ever dial a single phone number. My job, as I see it, is combing through paperwork most people never get shown, then translating it into what it actually does for your monthly budget. Set this aside before we go any further. Your age doesn't disqualify you, whether you're freshly retired or pushing 100, and neither does your gut feeling that your income runs too high for any of this. Nearly everyone who ends up walking away with nothing actually qualified the whole time. They just never got past their own assumption long enough to make one phone call. Let's take the Medicare one first, since it touches almost everyone listening. Part of your Social Security check gets siphoned off automatically every month to cover your Part B premium, long before that money ever reaches you. As of 2026, that monthly toll sits at $203. Do the multiplication. Across a year, you're looking at north of $2,400 quietly disappearing from a check that was never generous to start with. Here's the turn. In many states, the state itself will step in and cover that premium for you entirely, not just knock a few dollars off it. There's a tiered structure underneath this based on how tight your monthly income runs. The richest tier goes further than the premium alone. It clears out your deductibles and your copays as well, so a doctor's visit doesn't end with a bill in your mailbox 2 weeks later. The lower tiers stop at the premium, but that alone is still money worth having. Stay with me here, because this is exactly the spot where people talk themselves out of money that's already theirs. These income ceilings sit far higher than most people guess. On the richest tier, a single person can earn up to roughly $1,300 a month and still qualify. Move to the tiers covering just the premium, and that ceiling climbs to somewhere near $1,800 for someone single, reaching into the 2,400s once you're married. As for your house and your vehicle, stop worrying about them right now. Neither counts against you. What genuinely counts against you caps near $10,000 saved for one person, climbing to about $15,000 once two people share a household. Let me attach a name to this rather than leave it as figures on a page. I'll call him Harold, 73, who spent close to 40 years hauling freight across the country before his back finally forced him to park the rig for good. He gets by now on his Social Security check alone. $203 vanishes from it each month toward Part B, and Harold, until not long ago, had no clue any program existed to make it stop. Once somebody actually ran his numbers, he came in well within the limit. His state took the premium off his hands, and his monthly check jumped by over $200, adding up to more than $2,400 a year, with nothing else in Harold's life any different. There's a piece of this program almost nobody brings up, and it can be worth even more than the premium savings. Qualify for any tier of it, and you get automatically signed up for a separate benefit that puts a hard cap on your prescription costs, sometimes as low as a few dollars a prescription. For anyone managing multiple medications, that quiet add-on can be worth thousands of dollars a year by itself. Getting this one is designed to be painless. Reach out to your state's Medicaid office, or dial your local state health insurance assistance program, known as SHIP, which won't charge you a cent. You don't have to know which tier fits your situation or what any of the official names mean. Just open with this sentence: I have Medicare, I'm on a limited income, and I'd like to check whether my state covers my Part B premium. From there, it's on them to sort out the rest. Now, the warning I owe you: as soon as word about money like this spreads, the phone starts ringing with people claiming to represent Medicare or Social Security, saying your refund is sitting ready, and they only need your bank details or your Social Security number to send it. Hang up immediately. Neither agency will ever cold call you, asking for that kind of information to hand you a benefit. Anyone doing that over the phone is running a scam, full stop, no matter how official they sound. On to the second one, and this touches a bill that causes headaches, regardless of the calendar: your utility bill. A federally funded program, administered separately by every state, exists to help cover heating costs through winter, and in most states, cooling costs through summer as well. The word heating tends to make people picture January and stop paying attention, which is a mistake, because running an air conditioner in the middle of summer isn't optional for someone your age. It's a matter of basic safety. The exact amount depends on your household size, your income, and where you live, but figure somewhere between $200 and $1,000 a year, sent directly to the utility provider, bypassing your hands entirely. Sitting beneath that main benefit is a separate emergency fund, built for the exact moment a furnace dies mid-February or an air conditioner gives out in July, and that fund usually moves faster than the standard process. I want to be straight about timing, because it's exactly why I'm raising this now rather than after the temperature drops. This money is not bottomless. Every state receives a fixed allocation each year, and once that runs out, applicants are out of luck until the next cycle begins. States are supposed to prioritize their most vulnerable households, and someone your age on a fixed income typically sits near the front of that priority list, but only if you've actually applied. Most states open their windows sometime between October and January. Waiting until you're shivering to look into this usually means the funds are already spoken for. Picture a couple I'll call Wilbur and Virginia, who ran a small hardware store together for the better part of 3 decades before selling it and settling into retirement on Social Security alone. Every winter, their gas bill inched up, and every winter they nudged the thermostat down instead of making a call, convinced this kind of assistance was reserved for people in far worse shape than 2 former shop owners. One conversation flipped that. The program picked up several $100s of their winter bill, and when their furnace began making a noise they didn't trust, the emergency fund had a technician there within days. Applying couldn't be simpler. Reach your local energy assistance office directly, or just dial 211, a toll-free number that connects you to whoever runs the program in your area. There's no charge to apply, and because scammers gravitate toward this particular benefit, here's what to remember. The legitimate version of this never charges a fee and never rings you up out of the blue dangling free money. Anyone who does either of those things isn't with the government, and you're better off reporting it to the federal fraud hotline than simply hanging up and moving on. Now for the one I've held in reserve, because for the right person, this one doesn't shrink a bill at all. It shows up as an entirely new, separate deposit every single month, stacked directly on top of whatever you're already receiving. Keep 2 concepts apart in your mind here, because this is exactly where the costliest confusion sets in. Social Security is the check you built up through decades on the job. There's an entirely different federal program, meant for people 65 or older, or living with a disability, whose income and savings both sit very low. Here's the misunderstanding that costs people more than anything else covered today. Most people figure that since they're already drawing a Social Security check, this second one is automatically off the table. That's flat out wrong. When your Social Security check runs on the smaller side, this program can often top it up to a livable minimum. One doesn't cancel the other out. Part of why this confusion persists is that neither office has much reason to sit down and explain how the pair actually mesh together. Nobody's hiding the connection deliberately. It's simply nobody's assigned duty to spell it out for you. The figures shifted for 2026 following the latest adjustment. A single individual can now draw up to $994 monthly through this program, while a couple can reach $1,491. If you're already collecting some Social Security, this payment usually gets trimmed by a portion of that, so your total might land under the ceiling. Even trimmed down, a monthly deposit like this can turn a month that falls short into one that actually holds together for somebody living paycheck to paycheck on fixed income. Here's the second spot where people disqualify themselves needlessly, so let's clear it up too. This program does examine your resources, that part's true, but your primary residence doesn't count against you, and typically neither does your vehicle. What actually factors in tops out around $2,000 in savings for an individual, $3,000 for a couple, a threshold that's held steady for years, and is worth knowing before you assume your nest egg locks you out. Picture a woman I'll call Frances, 70 years old, who spent most of her career at a sewing machine in a garment factory, paying into Social Security throughout. These days her check runs dry well before the month does, typically somewhere around the third week. Frances was convinced this program amounted to welfare and that someone who'd worked her whole life had no right to it. She was mistaken on both fronts. A partial monthly deposit began arriving alongside her Social Security check, adding up to a few $100s at a stretch, and for the first stretch in memory, her month's numbers actually held up. There's a connected detail almost nobody mentions, and it can carry as much weight as the payment itself. In most states, getting the green light here also triggers automatic Medicaid coverage, no extra paperwork needed on your end. For anyone covering out-of-pocket costs, Medicare doesn't touch. That alone can outweigh the monthly check. To apply, contact the Social Security Administration directly, whether online, by phone, or at your local office, and there's no fee involved. One detail rarely mentioned up front: if you're denied and genuinely believe that's a mistake, you're entitled to request the decision in writing and entitled to appeal it. Most people denied on the first attempt never bother finding out why, they just walk away. Asking why in writing can be the entire gap between a legitimate denial and a clerical error that gets corrected on review. Here's why revisiting this specific year matters, even if you tried before and got nowhere. Late last year, the standard cost of living adjustment shifted every figure covered today. That monthly deposit I mentioned climbed by nearly $30 for someone single, while the income thresholds tied to the Medicare premium programs moved upward too. Whenever those figures move, the dividing line between qualifying and not qualifying shifts right along with them. Someone denied 18 months ago for landing $50 above a threshold might now sit comfortably below that same threshold, with everything else about their situation unchanged. That threshold isn't permanent. It adjusts most years. A door shut on you 2 years back could already be wide open, and nobody's calling to let you know. Checking again remains the only way to find out. Put all three together, and the picture shifts entirely from viewing them one by one. At its richest, the premium program can restore upward of $2,400 a year to a Social Security check, occasionally erasing deductibles and copays in the process. The utility program can offset several $100s, sometimes nearing $1,000, against a bill that arrives twice yearly without fail. And that separate monthly deposit for someone who qualifies fully can reach close to $12,000 across a year, with even a partial version amounting to genuinely meaningful money. Picture someone who lands all three at once. Her Medicare premium vanishes completely. Her heating and cooling costs drop substantially throughout the year. And a partial monthly deposit arrives every month on top of everything else. Combine those three, and you've moved well past pocket change. You're looking at thousands of tax-free dollars flowing annually to someone who, a year earlier, would have insisted the government owed her absolutely nothing. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. Nobody who ends up collecting on all three of these got there through superior intelligence or harder work than you've put in. The entire gap between someone who claims what's rightfully theirs and someone who never does comes down to a single fact. One of them learned this existed and made the call. If any piece of this applies to you or to someone you love, don't let another year slip by over an assumption made at your own kitchen table. Contact your state's Medicaid office or your local SHIP for the first. Dial 211 for the second. Go directly to the Social Security Administration for the third. None of the three costs anything to apply for, and keep this in mind. No legitimate caller will ever ask you for banking details up front in exchange for money you're owed. If any of this opened your eyes, do me one favor. Pass it along to somebody past 65 that you care about, particularly the ones certain the government owes them nothing at all. People like that are usually the last to go looking for this on their own, and you might be the only reason they ever do. Subscribe to this channel and turn the notification bell on so the next one reaches you the moment it's live.